Hello, everybody. Thanks so much for chiming in today. I am Miranda Levers, COO and co-founder of Thinkific, and I am so thrilled to be joined by Christina Jandali today. Christina is a business coach, growth strategist. She helps coaches, advisors, and service-based entrepreneurs to attract more clients, create marketing and visibility strategies, and ultimately to grow their online businesses. She has been featured in places like Forbes and Huffington Post, and I am really thrilled to be chatting with her here today. Welcome.
Hey, Miranda, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about this call just because you and I both have a very passionate love of small business and helping small businesses grow, and wanted to dig into that a little bit with you. I know that you and I both have a bit of a similar background in the fact that we once were in the corporate rat race and jumped ship, as it were, to join the world of full-time entrepreneurship. So congratulations, because I know that was still a somewhat semi-recent change for you, I believe, in the last couple of years.
It was, yeah.
I'm interested to know, because I think that oftentimes when people are sitting sort of before that leap, and people who are in the day job and they're sort of managing the side hustle, I'm curious what tips, tricks, or maybe like unexpected surprises that sort of tripped you up maybe along the way, or what do you wish that you had known before you made the leap?
That's such a good question. I think that one of the key things is, and much like we've talked about in the past as well, is that sometimes you're climbing up this corporate ladder and you're getting all this stuff done and you create a successful career for yourself. And then sometimes it takes you a little while before you realize maybe the ladder's up against the wrong wall. And you realize, like, what do you do? Do you continue on the path that you're on? Do you go back down the ladder and start again? And it can be really hard to make that decision sometimes, to try something entirely new when you're known for being very good at what it is that you do, and you've created this career for yourself. So I think one is that fear that comes up, should I be doing this now? Is it too late to do this? Should I change that direction? So having that awareness of the fear and knowing that that's totally normal, and that the longer that you do sit and think about it, or think, one day I'll do this, or if you ignore those signs and those the little the twinges that hit you, they only continue to get stronger and stronger, usually until the point where it's like, okay, you know what, I've got to do something. Something hits you and causes you to say, that I've got to get moving. I've got to start this. And I think that, there's two different types of people. There's the type of person that really needs to dive in 100%, quit cold turkey, leave their career, dive fully into their business, like the sink or swim. And that's where they thrive. That's not for everybody, but there's definitely some people that do better with that, having some savings put aside and just going full in. What I think with the people that tend to go that way, which is actually more along the lines of what I did, I was sort of doing both at once for a while. And then I realized I kept feeling like I had this safety net to fall back on. And so it kept me being safer in my business. It kept me from stretching myself, because I always had this thing that I had to go back to. So for me, that helped push me forward to think sink or swim. On the other perspective, though, is not everyone thrives in that environment, and not everyone thrives with that stress. And so the bigger part of people have have more success from being able to do it alongside their job, and being able to get started, start that market research, start learning about who they want to serve, how they want to serve, what are their passions, how can they monetize that, what are they really good at, what are people naturally come to them for, what's that zone of genius, how can they offer that and package that expertise up in a way that they can help support someone, maybe through consulting or coaching or done for you, and being able to move along the line and get some of those paying clients, get that proof of concept of what it is that you want to offer. And like we've talked about, it evolves over time, and what you start out with isn't necessarily going to be where you're going to end up with, but that's definitely how to get started in the beginning of going through that. So I think there's the two camps. There's like the sink or swim, or there's the slow and steady. And it really is dependent on your personality type.
Awesome. Is there one thing, if you could go back and tell your past self one thing before you actually made the jump, is there one thing that stands out as something you kind of wish you knew, because it would have saved you some time and heartache perhaps?
Yeah, I think just do it. and don't get stuck in the how. Cause I think, I'm a planner by nature. And so, for as far back as I remember before going to school, I had all of my years of semesters all planned out of what I was going to do, like this planner by nature. And so this idea that when you start this business, you have this perspective, it's going to look this way. Oh, I'm going to have to, I'm going to sell so many of this, I'm going to do this. And we get so attached to how it's going to look. And the reality is that it usually never turns out the way that you plan. And oftentimes it turns out to be way better, but you have to be open to be able to see how it can come together. And an example of this was I did my very first group program that I sold. I did did this interview series, and I had so much value. I spent months preparing this, and I thought, oh my goodness, by the end of this, people are going to want to work with me. They're going to be like jumping over backwards to want to work with me to go into this program. It's such a great program. And I did this webinar, and I waited, and there was nothing. And I couldn't believe it. I was mortified. I was so disappointed. And then sure enough, a sale trickled in. But then it forced me to get curious. Well, how else can I sell this? Or how else can I get the word out about this? And how can I make these connections? And who do I know that this is good for? And so it put me into that place of coming up with new ways. And I had some speaking engagements and some other things that allowed me to sell out the program. But I also realized too that, you can't make an offer once and expect it to sell, that you do have to keep going. So it's a matter of getting started, letting go of the how, being open to how that comes up, and continuing to take action, continuing to move forward until you find the ways that are going to work for you.
I love that. And I love that you mentioned getting curious. That's one of my favorite things, is how can you get curious about something? So I want to dig into that example a little bit more. So you put together this program, you did the webinar, it did not yield all the riches that you expected. So what did you do? Did you pivot entirely and do something else? Did you double down on something? Did you find a new channel? What did you start to get curious about, and what did you change, and what did you leave alone?
Yes, great question. So I was committed to doing the program. So I continued on with what the offer was. But then I started opening up, saying, okay, how can maybe I need to have conversations with people. Maybe this isn't going to happen all through automation just yet. Maybe I don't have that part figured out yet. Maybe I need to have conversations with people. So how can I get those conversations? And then the question was, okay, who do I know that this would be a good program for? Being open to how that might come up. I had a speaking engagement that was booked for a group of financial advisors, and the program that I was selling was to do with getting booked and getting paid. And so I thought, well, it could apply to financial advisors. My idea was that it was more for entrepreneurs, but that was my background in finance, and I could absolutely help with getting booked and getting paid, and that could be a part of it. So I did a speaking engagement, and I made an offer to have a conversation with me, and that actually filled a good chunk of the program. And then I got curious with people that I knew, reaching out to people. And it's funny, sometimes we go into this online space and we think everything's going to be automated. You can just sit back and sip your tea, kick your feet back, and watch all the sales come in. And the reality is, until it takes legwork, it takes that time of going through, it takes that opportunity. So like you were asking about getting curious, it was a matter of, how am I speaking to these people? Am I speaking to them in the way that they connect with? Have I nailed down the leverage part to be able to do it automated, or do I need to have the conversations? Okay, maybe I need to take a step back and actually have conversations with people. And so I think I had maybe one person purchase the program through automation, and the rest I actually had a conversation with and enrolled them into the program. And then once I started getting the yeses, then of course it built that confidence to be like, okay, people want it, I can do this. And then, allowed me to continue on.
I love that you just said that, because you and I had a previous conversation where we talked about how we can scale the one-to-one and the conversation, and so not get away from that, because oftentimes one of the biggest pitfalls is exactly what you just said, which is this belief that we're just going to automate it. We're just going to pre-write all of the copy. We're going to pre-write all the stuff, and people are going to magically go into it, and it's going to sell on its own. But really, we have to oftentimes go back to the actual conversation. And once we're nailing it on the conversation, then we can automate that. So,
exactly.
So having gone through that experience, what are some of the things that you've learned about scaling the relationship building? So now that you actually are at a point where you know that you can do it one-on-one, but now you're able to sell through automation and through some of that pre-scripted stuff, what are some of the tricks that you've learned in order to really scale the conversation to more people?
Yeah, I think that's great. So I think having that opportunity to go from one to one, I think one of the most important things is paying attention to the clues and the consistencies that come up when you're having those conversations. So when you're having those one-to-one conversations, when you're working one-to-one through coaching, consulting, what is it? What are the common themes that keep coming up? What are the pain points? What are people saying that they're struggling with? What are they asking for? What are they looking to you for? What are they hoping for? What do they want? And being able to recognize that it leaves clues and tying into that language. I think that was one of the biggest ahas for me, was when I stopped talking about from my own head and started speaking in the voice of my people, in the way that they would respond to things. So for example, online you might see someone and they're selling, helping businesses grow online, and they're talking about, oh, you just want to harness your power and you want to step into your full potential so that you can be the best that you can be and make more sales. Well, that's great. But the reality is someone's not Googling, how can I be more powerful? How can I do this? They're Googling like, oh my God. And when they're thinking about like what's keeping them up at night, they're thinking to themselves, how am I going to get how am I going to find my next paying client? Like, how am I going to sell this? How am I going to do this so I can keep the lights on or pay my rent or be able to do this? So really getting into the stepping into your ideal client, into what they're looking for, what they're asking for, and being able to master that messaging and use that messaging for when you're speaking. So when you're writing social media posts, when you're sending out your emails, you're using that language and you're being conversational. And those of you that may have come from the corporate space, is like letting go of all of that old lingo that you used to speak, that used to sound like, used to think you sound smart. Not that you're intentionally, but that's how people speak. And realizing that it's a matter of like having a conversation like we are now, and being able to write in that way that people feel drawn into you, where you can share stories and you can share that, and basically taking those one-to-one conversations, but turning that into your writing, into your copy, into your videos, so that you can connect with your people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's always my favorite copy tip, which is basically don't write the language, go read what your customers and your audience, like what is the language that they're using, and then echo that back to them, because it's not about what we think we should be saying. It's really about how do we be exactly right for the problems that they're having, and in particular, the way that they are articulating the problems and the challenges.
Exactly. Yeah. So going back to what you're saying too, the one-to-one to one-to-many, I think another phenomenal way that I've found that has been super powerful is one-to-many, by having community, building community between your followers. So it's not just you speaking, to them, but it's having that community engagement, whether it's responding and replying to your emails where you're actually having a two-way conversation, whether it's hosting a free Facebook group, even where you invite your community to come, where they can communicate with each other, they can communicate with you, and they feel like they're part of something. And that really emphasizes that relationship. So they feel like they're part of your world, even though you may not have even had that one-to-one conversation with them.
Yeah. I'm glad that you brought up Facebook groups, because I know that you've got a really great program all around helping people to build and grow their own Facebook group for their business. So tell us about that. Like, why should Facebook groups matter to our listeners? If somebody doesn't already have one, what is the benefit, and how does that tie in to the rest of your business?
Yeah, great question. So I think one thing with Facebook groups is sometimes too, when people are starting, as we're talking about people transitioning from corporate space, and this is actually something that was a bit of my motivator in the beginning, was that I was building this business on the side, and I didn't necessarily want my employer to know what, some of you might be there, right? You don't want to be out there totally in the open of what it is that you're doing. Maybe you're trying to build on the side. You don't know if it's going to, you're still trying to put the feelers out. And so private Facebook groups give you the opportunity to have that place of safety, where you have the opportunity to have conversations. You have the opportunity to go in other people's Facebook groups or starting your own Facebook group, where you can invite your community in and have that social media presence in a way that's contained. And what that also does is it allows your followers to be able to have a safe place to ask questions, where they know that it's not out there in the open, that all their friends and family can't see it, in a way that so I think that's one piece of it that's really important for those people that are transitioning. And the other piece is that it's ultimately about a community, and people people will stay. There's a friend of mine who runs Innovative Fitness, and a fitness company for high-end fitness. And one of the things that they did that really helped build out their business was, instead of making it about personal training and that the outcome is you're going to come and you're going to work out X days a week and, you know, you're going to hope to lose weight, what they did was they made it all about having these events in this community. So they brought people together, they travel around the world and they do hiking trips to Machu Picchu, or they climb the Great Wall of China, or they do the New York Marathon, and they would have all these events. And so all the people that would come there, they would be working towards training for this common goal. And it brought together this sense of community with the people that were working out there. So it wasn't so much about going in for that, you know, I'm going to lose a couple inches and get fit and probably fall off the bus in a few months, because we all go back to usually our, you know, our ways unless we change our lifestyle. It was about creating this community, and all these people became friends and connected, and it got them excited about the next event that they were going to do together. And I always think that's such a great example that we often miss sometimes in the online space, is how important community is, and that feeling of doing something together and being on a mission together and doing a challenge together, or, you know, doing something together where it's bringing people in and gets them to get to know you, get to know each other, and it really creates that raving fan base.
Yeah, I love that, because I know that, you know, as an entrepreneur, it can be very lonely when you're just like waking up in your kitchen where you're going to work by yourself all day. And that as social creatures, it's so valuable for us to build the community of other people who are also doing, you know, building their own businesses, so that we can hold each other accountable.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Huge. So we're newly into 2018, and I know that you're quite on the, you know, like you're talking and working with small business owners all over the place all the time. And I'm curious if you are seeing any particular trends when it comes to marketing and online business, and like what's new and exciting for 2018? What are people talking about? What's in, what's out? Anything top of mind?
Yeah, I think that the customer experience is going to be more heightened as we move through 2018. I think people prefer the higher touch. They want the higher touch. They want more involvement. They want to get to know you. They want more authenticity in the leader. It's not a matter of everything being picture perfect. And I know that might hold some people back in earlier stages, thinking, oh, this person, but they have a beautiful website and have these beautiful images and they have this. And people really want to know truth and authenticity and who you really are. And so I think having that deeper connection, having the higher touch points, where it's not necessarily about the information age anymore, it's a matter of holding their hand and being on this journey with them and being with them. And so this is showing up in lots of different ways. One way, you know, through messenger bots, as an example, with Facebook releasing messenger bots. It's creating the sense of having that two-way conversation and that engagement. Although it is automated, it really gives that sense of having having that two-way conversation. So I think the tools that we're going to start to see that come out, and the way in which we sell or put together programs, is really developing that higher touch, that client experience, much like we were talking about before this as well, how that's so important. I really think that things are moving more towards that, and away from the perfection, away from, you know, set it and done and be done, and really having more of that opportunity to have that connection and that relationship.
Great. Totally off the ball question, but this is one that I'm really curious. It's almost like it's like the Survivor of online business. So, like, you know, the TV show Survivor.
I love it.
So oftentimes I know, like, especially when people are thinking about starting, and whether that's like either like totally jumping ship from what they're doing, or they're just looking to go off on their own, is that it can be challenging watching people who are successful and who have it all kind of like look like they've got it all put together, and think, well, yeah, but like, you know, they did that in a time when it was easy to get Instagram followers, or it was easy to whatever. And so if like today, think about like you're stranded on a deserted island, but that deserted island is like an alternate reality where you know everything that you know today, but you have no network, you have no connections, you do not have a list, and you don't have anybody that you can call. What do you do? So you've got to pay the rent, you've got to pay the bills. Like, I'm curious for you, do you go back and get a day job and then build up slowly? Do you dive right into entrepreneurship again? And like, what is the first thing that you do if you're in that scenario?
Oh, it's such a fun question. So first thing, I think I'm officially unemployable now.
Yeah.
I don't think I could go back to having a job. But I think the biggest thing is ultimately as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, you're solving problems. And so the first thing would be figure out what's the big problem. What's the problem that people have and how can you solve it? And ultimately that's really what business is all about, finding a problem, solving it, communicating in a way that they get it. And that's in its simplest form is being able to do that. So being stuck on this deserted island and coming up with this would coming up with that idea of what it is that, what it is that people are needing. And, thinking about back to like the gold rush days, that a lot of the wealth that was created weren't for the people that were finding gold. It was for the people that were selling the tools to those people that were trying to find the gold. Mm-hmm. So being able to find out what that problem is and being able to communicate that and be able to help them in order to move forward. But yeah, I think I'm officially unemployable. I would probably find funding some other way. Maybe there's some investors that still had some money on the island.
Amazing. So Christina, you help women and businesses in all different stages and learn how to market and build visibility and strategy and so on and so forth. Who is an ideal client for you? So thinking about the people who might be watching this show, who needs to call you or needs to get onto one of your programs right away? Who's that perfect person to work with you?
Oh, such a great question. So the perfect person for me is I think we often attract people that are similar to ourselves, and it's the woman that has that skill set that's been successful either with a prior business, been successful in her corporate career, who's driven, who's got this level of expertise that wants to be able to market it in a bigger way, wants to be able to get out there and stop building someone else's dream, and begin to really build her own dream and be able to have that greater impact and be able to utilize her expertise in a way of getting out there in a bigger way, leveraging herself online, having that bigger impact. So I think it's ultimately about that woman who's either in that corporate space that is that's been able to start doing coaching consulting on the side, or someone that's been doing it for some time and knows that she has so much more potential to have a much greater reach, just doesn't quite know exactly how to be able to scale and leverage in a bigger way.
Awesome. Amazing. And I think that you're at deliveryourgenius.com in terms
of
all your stuff. Fantastic. All right. This has been so lovely chatting with you. Thank you so much for hopping on a call with me today. And I'm looking forward that I know that you're here local in Vancouver. So next time for sure, you need to come down to our office and we'll actually do this in person.
Absolutely. I can't wait. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, cheers.
Take care.